welcome to Talking the Talk, and I'm so glad you took the time to talk to me again, my friend.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Well, so it's been a little while since we talked, and obviously, like you said, we talked at that sweltering hot show in Winder, Georgia, which was amazing. But I got to ask you, you're doing a lot of press for the album and stuff, which is fantastic. Rise has just completely blown me away, which obviously we're going to get to. But what is a question that you get asked so much that if someone asks you again, like you'll just want to kick something? There's not any one question that makes me want to kick something. It's just a lot of times, it's a lot of topics are covered, the same. It does, I've been doing this so long, I'm happy to answer anything as many times as people want to know, because I know everyone's got a different reach and a different audience that their outlet goes to. So there's not anything that angers me, as you put it. Sometimes certain topics feel repetitive, but I know that, the point of doing press is that you're reaching different audiences by talking to different journalists and outlets. So to me, it's just, it's part of it. So nothing, I haven't kicked any walls in yet. So. Well, that's good, because I want to make sure it wasn't that question that I just asked.
Okay, no, there's not anything. If there was, I'd let you know. But,
You're going to be like, hold on, Don, let me go kick something real quick.
Okay.
Well, I also, like I said, I had to say congrats on Rise, man. That is such an incredible record. And I'll be honest, it took me a few listens, and not even a few listens, not to get into it, but it took me a few listens to really grasp where you are taking me as a listener. And that's a pretty intense thing. And like I said, I consider that, as an artist myself, would be a great thing, because it wasn't an album that I just listened to and said, oh, that was good. I listened to it once and I was like, whoa. And then I listened to it a second time and I was like, whoa. And I listened to it a third time and I was like, he's really taking us into this kind of dark place where you seemed to reside for quite a while. Was that your intention when making the record, or was that something that just came across as the songwriting progressed?
Well, it all comes from the feel, the vibe, the emotion, that what you're feeling on a record always starts with the song. And, every record's different because, you're at a different place in your life. So you're writing about different things, or maybe the same things from a different perspective, from a point of being on the planet a little longer than maybe when you wrote about them 20 years ago, or, but there's a lot of finding strength in adversity in the writing on the record. And that's been a subject that I've, place that I've written from a lot, even going back to Nobody's Fool. I mean, a song like Nobody's Fool is, that's finding some strength in heartbreak,
right.
And telling this won't happen to me again and save me. It's kind of like that. So it's not an unfamiliar territory for me to write from. So there's a lot of that on this record. So it's, so none of it's intentional. The writing starts with lyrics first. It's like, you're looking for that subject matter, the title of the book. What are we writing about? What's the emotion? What's the subject? So Savannah and I both write from that perspective of lyrics first. So, you're out in the world every day, experiencing life, observing life, and, you're constantly analyzing your thoughts, and you're saying, is that a song? No, that's not a song, but maybe this thought is,
Right.
And, and I've joked many times actually about, you can literally be in aisle 7 of Home Depot, buying a mop, and, a song idea pops in your head. So,
it's happened many times.
So when it's lyrics first, you don't have to have an instrument.
Right.
And so, you're really kind of pulling down thoughts or emotions as possible songs from as you're, just living your life. So, I've always written that way, even going back to the early stuff I did with Cinderella. Even the most heavy riff-driven songs started with lyrics first. So on the new record, The Death of Me is a perfect example of that. Savannah actually wrote that lyric. It just hit her like a lightning bolt one day, and she kind of scribbled down the lyrics. About, I'd say 95% of them that you're hearing on the album, and handed it to me, and I read it, and I was like, that lyric instantly told me what that music should sound like. Because the verses describe that dark place that you can be in, but then the chorus is an uplifting message of it's not gonna take you down. So that's why the verses and the riff are dark and heavy, and then the chorus kind of lifts to that first big G major chord. You're not going to be it gives a lift. So the lyrics inspire the music, and like I said, none of it's ever intentional.
Right.
You're pulling emotions out, and every record has its own life and what it takes on. And a big part of the life of this record was the fact that we recorded it with a band that we've become so tight with now for 6 years of touring, not only musically, but personally too. So that energy was in the room when we recorded, we recorded this as a band. I mean, so many of those tracks are live from the drums up even to my lead vocal. Probably one of the least amount of overdubs I've ever done on a record, I would say, was this record. We really went for performance.
Well, because one of the things I loved, like you said, you're kind of touching a little bit on the kind of dark matter of whatnot of the lyrics and stuff. Like, to me, that kind of in some ways kind of harkens back a little to I want to even say like the Still Climbing era of Cinderella, where those lyrics were kind of very much where you were at in your life at that point, and there was some frustration and some anger that kind of came through. Whereas I feel like with this album, it's less anger, but it's a lot of resolve. But at the same time, it's kind of saying, okay, I want to show you what I went through. You're not coming out and going, hey, it's all roses now. You know what I mean? You're like, hey, I went through some dark shit. So come with me and let me show you. You know what I mean?
Well, I think songwriting and music is, I always like when I can listen to a song and I feel like the artist, I'm getting a look inside what they went through and how they overcame it. And, the whole picture, they're really letting you in. So, Jagger was very, one of my heroes was just, he just paints pictures, with his lyrics, and, really kind of lets you into the emotion, that was felt. So I think that, again, I can't stress enough that I think starting with the lyrics, it makes it always, for me, and I know everyone writes a different way, for me that makes the songs that are the most heartfelt, because there's a story there, that it centers around. And I never sit down to finish that story, and Savannah doesn't, or we don't together, unless it really feels like something that means something to us. And over the last 6 years, all the songs on Rise are all brand new song ideas from the time we started touring with the new band in 2013, and we collected a lot of ideas over the course of touring, and at the end of last year sat down and started saying which of these ideas are the strongest ones, and certain ones just jumped out. And when you have a really great idea or a great title of the book, shall we say, or subject, the book kind of writes itself. So finishing the songs, they came together very naturally and easily.
See, and that's another thing I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit, was with the writing process. For the longest time, you were the sole songwriter. You were doing everything. You were doing lyrics, you were doing music. How has that dynamic changed lately or over the years, now that Savannah has become somewhat of your writing partner? Is there a sense of relief to it, or was it kind of hard for you to kind of relinquish a little bit of power, so to speak, to another party? Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it's not hard at all. I think when you connect with someone writing wise, it's very easy, and I think that I gravitate towards writers who write from the place of lyrics first, because because to me that's the inspiration, is the lyrics. So I might have a lyric idea, I take it to Savannah and she goes, oh, that's cool, and she knows how to complete the thought lyrically, but then she'll start singing a melody to it, and vice versa. And I've written with a lot of other people too, and Savannah and I co-wrote with a lot of people on other writers on The Way Life Goes, and we co-wrote with a couple other people on Rise too. Kendra Chantel, who is one of our band members and a great vocalist and writer. We co-wrote Touching the Divine with her, and that was just really easy for the three of us to sit in a room and do, because Kendra also is kind of a lyrics first person, so it's not uncommon to walk into a writing situation with us where there's no instruments. There's just people sitting there with pads and paper, or paper and pens, and kind of pulling out lyrics and saying, what do you think of this? That's cool. I like the first part of that line, but the second part sucks. What about this? Or, and just literally kicking around, so that's how I've always written. So when I started co-writing, which, it was kind of after Cinderella, I got more into that. I moved to Nashville, and that's really, the songwriting method here is all about lyrics.
Right.
And, so it was, it was easy to kind of write. It wasn't a very long way of answering your question is when you writing with people who kind of approach it the same way and that are talented. It doesn't feel weird at all. There was no transition or, weird, it wasn't weird at all for me to transition into that. It was actually cool because you got someone sitting in a room that comes up with a line or a melody that you never would have thought of. You go, thank God. It's great. I never would have thought of that. So, so yeah, no, it's cool. It makes it better to me. At the end of the day, you want the song to be as good as it can be. So it's not something that was uncomfortable in any way.
Yeah, I totally agree, because I have a band here in Atlanta, and I'm pretty much the sole writer, but I very much include my band, obviously, in the arrangement process. And it's so nice when you can bring something into someone and go, it's like I always explain to people that it's kind of like bringing in like a rough line drawing, and then everyone kind of adds their colors and kind of completes it, and then I don't think I've ever had a song that came out the way that I brought it in. You know what I mean? And I'm going, that's fucking great, man. Like that's that part of that process that I love.
Yeah.
Is that a process that you wished a little more for Cinderella in the past, or is that something that you were pretty much at the time like, no, I have to do this?
Well, no, I wrote songs with Eric on those records. There was.
Well, that's right. Yeah,
it's just I've been writing since I was 8 years old. So going into that first record, I had a lot of songs, already before I'd even, the band was even formed. So that's a craft that I've been kind of working on for a long time. But in terms of like arrangement and stuff, we worked in the studio and kind of, like you said, putting the colors in and all together. The writing kind of fell more on my shoulders, but like I said, I wrote some stuff with Eric, and I love those songs, and that, we had fun writing those. And I'm very proud of the Cinderella records, and they came, like I said, every record has its own journey and how it comes together, and you learn from each one, and you take what you learn to the next one, to the next one, to the next one. And I think our records, from Night Songs through Still Climbing, there was a kind of a journey and an evolution. And hopefully I learned a few things from making those, and bringing some knowledge or wisdom into the records I'm making now. A lot of that knowledge and wisdom was learned from Andy Johns. We were really lucky to have a veteran producer to kind of whip us in shape, because we were greenhorns.
I don't think a lot of people realize the important role of a good producer. It's like, going in and recording an album is one thing, and it's kind of like my past experience with recording at home. When you're doing your own thing, you're kind of stuck with what you have, but when you have a producer that goes, man, you know what, I think that solo would sound better on a 335 instead of your telly, and I'm going, really? And then all of a sudden you're plugged in and you're going, oh man, can I take this home? You know what I mean?
That extra perspective of someone who's objective, that has great ears, is just invaluable. It really is. And, in recent years, it's been more self-producing. And, Savannah and I produced The Way Life Goes, but we brought in, since we're both kind of close to it because we're songwriters and performing on the record, we brought in a third person who was an engineer and producer, Chuck Turner, who worked with us on that record. And we did the same thing on this record. And we brought in Kyle O'Connor, who's actually our front of house engineer, who mixes us live, and so he knows the band inside out, but he's also a musician and an extremely talented producer. So, he was like that kind of objective, person in there, who wasn't involved, say, in the writing, that could sit back and, say, make commentary on the arrangements or parts and stuff, and the three of us worked really well together. So, it's invaluable when you can surround yourself with really talented people that you trust. And, obviously Savannah's become my partner in that sense when it comes to music, writing, production, everything. Her ears are amazing. And Kyle, on this record was another person who was just, it wasn't even a question in our mind, that we wanted to work with him. He actually ended up mixing the bonus tracks on the deluxe edition, and we were just floored by his skills in the studio. So, and like I said, nobody knows the band better. He stands in front of us every night, so he knows what we're capable of. So,
but there's also something kind of to be said about somebody who actually isn't directly involved in the writing process, where they can kind of remove themselves from any kind of connection to the songs other than, hearing them and saying, okay, this is what I hear, because I think as artists, that is where a lot of times we can kind of lose sight of what we're doing, is we're too close to what we've written.
Yeah. It's nice to see the reaction of kind of the thumbs up or the thumbs down from someone who wasn't involved in that process, and, you could see it was cool to see Kyle, not only Kyle, but the band too, bringing these songs in. They were really, when we actually started arranging and tracking them, they were very excited about them. So that kind of feedback is good either way. Fortunately on this record, the songs we were bringing in, everyone was very excited about, but that, that can go both ways, and it's a good thing that it can go both ways.
Right.
Because if you're walking into the room with a song and the producer and everyone else in the band is kind of like, yeah, okay. Then, maybe this isn't a song we should cut. Maybe we should rewrite it, or maybe we should just bring in a different song. So that feedback, whether it's positive or negative, is a good thing to have, But in terms of the writing, we've been collecting song ideas, like I said, for the last 6 years. So we really pulled out of that pile the ones that felt special. And this record came together extremely quickly from the writing. I mean, we stepped off the bus and just started looking at song ideas. They just started kind of writing themselves, and we'd walk in and instantly cut 2 or 3 with the band and then go home and work on a few more. And it just really, the flow of it and the creativity was just, really flowing from the beginning. So it just felt like it was the right time, because those creative juices were just flowing in an effortless way. From the writing to the tracking and arranging with the band, and the excitement that everyone had about the record and what we were walking out of the tracking sessions with, it just felt like it was the right time. I think there's a season for every record, and the times in between are the times that you're filling the well of inspiration, and then there's a point where it's going to come out, and we felt like that's where we were last fall, that it was time for it to all come out. And to come out with this band,
right?
Get it on tape and do our thing. So
it's funny because one of the things I've heard you ask pretty frequently, recently and in the past, is, so how often are you going to put out new material? And I think that generally most listening audiences think that this is the kind of stuff that just happens, oh, I'm going to write an album, and I don't know that people were, like you said, I loved how you put it, that, there's kind of songwriting seasons. Like you kind of go through seasons, you know, where like you go through a writing spell and then you write what you can, and then when it stops coming to you, you just have to kind of go with it and hope that it comes back again, you know, at some point. And when it does, it does. You know, for some it might be a year, for some it might be 2 or 3.
Yeah, well, for me, the challenge really is, honestly, is to not to force it. Because I mean, I can honestly say there's been periods in my life for 2 years where I didn't have a song idea or a thought or wrote a song or anything, and just sat there wondering, man, is it ever going to come back? You know, and you know that happens. You know, but what you don't realize is during that period you're living life, you're experiencing things. There's things that are filling that well. And then at some point, you know, it kind of just sparks again, you know. But the hard thing is, and I just insist on this, you know, you don't in those periods of time, you don't force it, because the few times that I've tried, you end up with something that's so forced sounding and so just, it usually just comes out lame, for lack of a better word, you know. So my method has always been to not force the writing, and it does get scary when a year or two goes by and you haven't written a song, and you're like, is it ever going to come back? But you kind of, it's, for me, it's important to kind of resist the forcing it thing, because when I have, it's usually not a good result. So you have to, you know, now obviously there's been a lot of things that have been well publicized over the years that have interfered with the creation of new music. Everything from a couple of lawsuits and health issues and voice issues and stuff that obviously get in the way of all of that, and that's life, and there's nothing you can do about it. But even if you could remove all of that, there's still that kind of seasons of, you know, where you kind of are creative and you're not.
Right. Because it's funny, because like you said, like with everything you went through, you know, and as hard as it was, which I have to say, like, I totally commend you for not giving up, because most people, even myself, I think I probably would have just given up the first time. You know what I mean? And so it shows your resilience. But at the same time, like you said, like, let's say it wouldn't have been as many drastic issues or as serious issues as it was, other things would have happened in life. Like, I don't know, like you would have broke your foot, you know, and something would have happened and like totally threw you out of the mindset of writing. So like with that said, like as far as do you overwrite when it comes to albums, or do you find yourself like, okay, like I've got this much material, like I don't like, do you go in with like 20 something songs, or do you go in with like 14, 15 songs?
Honestly, other than the first Cinderella record where there was like 60 songs, pretty much every record since then, it's been like you have that season of creativity and there's a bunch of songs that fall out, and you kind of write the ones that feel the strongest or the most meaningful, and that's it. I mean, it's not to say that there's not other song ideas that are floating around, but what, like, you know, for each record, the songs that were written and recorded are the ones that are on the record, and it's not like there's, you know, a bunch of masters laying around that were never released or that kind of thing. You know, I think honestly that the ones that are on Rise, the 11 songs, are the first 11 that we wrote. Now there were other ideas that we didn't pursue that are still floating around that could end up being songs on a future album, but no, I typically don't overwrite and have never over-recorded anything. There's no like vault full of like.
There's not going to be a lost Tom Keifer album somewhere. No,
there's not. You know, a few crappy demos laying around, but nothing. You know. Well, no, it's kind of always been like, you know, Long Cold Winter was written on the road for Night Songs, and it was like, you know, those songs just kind of fell out, and boom. There weren't any extras, and you know, each record's kind of been that way. There are a few leftover ideas on The Way Life Goes that are still floating around that, you know, maybe we would revisit at some point, but nothing really, you know, solidly complete. And kind of the same with this record. You know, we wrote those 11 and they felt great. There you have it.
So as a writer, I know I've experienced this, and I've always wanted to ask you this question because I love asking some of my favorite songwriters this question. Is there ever anything you look back on that you've written and recorded and that makes you kind of cringe and go, "Oh, what was I thinking?"
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah. I don't know that I want to name any, but yeah, of course there is. And a lot of times it's more, honestly, most of the time it's more from a standpoint of performance or how it was produced.
Right.
Because that can completely change your perception of a song, you know? Mm-hmm. So there's some stuff in the early days with Cinderella I don't love the vocal performances on, or looking back on it, I don't like the production. It's usually not the song so much, you know. You kind of look back and say, "Wow, I wish we'd mixed that a little different," or "I wish I'd sang that a little different or better," or something. But most of the songs, I'm pretty happy with.
So one of the things you do a lot on, especially since The Way Life Goes and doing these tours, is that you definitely mix in some fan favorites, some classic Cinderella tunes and whatnot, mm-hmm. And sometimes, like, they work so well with the new songs. I have a hard time deciding if the new songs have just held up really well, or if the old songs held up really well, or if the new songs just sound old, which is like a good thing because it's a very cohesive, sound. Like they just really all mesh together. Is there a particular song that you haven't played in a while or ever that you would love to see? Let's say, like, bring out with this band, say, like, you know what, I've never played this one, let's do this one.
I don't know. We did. We've kind of rotated a lot of the Cinderella stuff over the 6 years. We've changed that up every year, where we're kind of, we always play the hits because everyone wants to hear those, and we've really tried to change out some of the more album track kind of stuff. I mean, I played. I don't know. I played, a lot of them, obviously with Cinderella and with this band. So I can't think of one that comes to mind where I'm like, I really wish we played this one. I mean, a couple of years ago, I hadn't done Long Cold Winter in a long time, and we decided to do it with this band, and we put a little bit of our own stamp on it. Kendra and Savannah do some cool vocals with me on it, and that was really cool to pull out, and it's actually still in the show. Yes. So that was like an album track I hadn't done in a while, and we pulled it out with this band. So, we kind of do what we want, and we pull things out here and there. And certainly, with the way life goes, over the course of the time we toured with that, we played kind of just rotating songs in and out, played almost the whole record, I think, over the course of the cycle. And we're just getting started with this one. We've got about 3 in the set now, but I anticipate we'll be adding more now that the record's been released, and probably rotating things as we're supporting it through next year. So can't really think of it. Nothing really jumps out that, that I would say, wow, I've never done this one, I really want to do it, because we've covered a lot of ground in the 6 years we've been out.
Because one of the things
we've done Still Climb. I mean, we did the title track from Still Climbing for one tour. We opened with it, and
so great. Yeah.
We did Sick for the Cure, I think, was the song we opened with the very first year we were out. So I mean, we actually even did One for Rock and Roll in its entirety the first year we were out. So, and like I said, we really kind of ran the gamut on The Way Life Goes, and I'm sure we will on this record too.
Yeah, because one of the things I have to say is that it's always impressive to me when an artist has new material and their live shows are pretty much dominated by new songs. And that really shows a sense of pride, not just in the new material, but in your band, because, the Keifer band is what you guys are known as. And, you've said this a few times, that, like, kind of stepping from out of the shadow of your own name kind of has created this comfort level for you.
Yes, I've always wanted to be part of the band, so it's refreshing that early on the fans recognized that there was a real chemistry as a band, and they came up with the hashtag Keifer Band online, and we saw that, and it's like our logo now. And I think we're the only band that has a hashtag in our logo. I may not be 100% accurate in saying that, but the fans came up with that. So it was actually very comforting, as you said to me, that they viewed it as a band, because I never wanted to be really a solo artist. It's kind of cool just being part of the gang.
I think Cinderella, at least for me, you know, being a fan since Night Songs, I have to say was that even though, like, I always had to say, like, I loved Cinderella, and I still do, it was more of the songs that I loved more than anything. So, of course, with you and the songs kind of coming through, I'm going to want to support you as the songwriter, not as, you know, just you as the person. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, I know what you mean. It's I mean, to me, everything starts with the songs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, none of this is possible without a song. You know, that's kind of the foundation that an artist or a musician that goes out and makes records and tours. And, you know, if you don't, you know, it starts with a song. So I think ultimately that's the foundation of it all. So yeah, that makes perfect sense to me.
And I guess to bring it around full circle, was that one of the things that was a big honor for me was to once again meet you when you were in Georgia at the Winder show, and I got to present you with an essay that's going to be in my book next year. That was a sign, at least I hope to you, of what your music and Cinderella in general inspired me to actually write that. You see what I'm saying? And so,
yeah.
Do you ever get tired of hearing someone say something like that, like that you're an inspiration to them?
Well, no. I mean, that's a, you know, a meaning. I mean, that's the ultimate thing, is that, you know, if you can touch someone's life in an inspirational or a positive way, no, that's not something that you would ever get tired of hearing, because that's the most meaningful compliment, I guess, that you can get, is someone that's putting some form of art out into the world, or music, and it touches someone's life in a positive way. Then that's you know, always a nice thing to hear. So
Cinderella and your music and everything has been the soundtrack to my life since I was a kid, and it's just great to still have you around. You know?
Well, thanks. It's good to be around. So I appreciate it, my friend.
Thank you so much for doing this, and I appreciate having you. And I so look forward to seeing you again, and I'll have to make sure I get you a copy of my book.
Cool. Well, I would love to have one, and it was great talking to you again. And I believe I saw a pretty nice review you did of our record, so we appreciate that.
Oh, excellent. And, thank you.
yeah, appreciate that very much. So, well, good talking to you, my friend, and you have a great day, and I'm sure we will see you down the road.
You too, and best of luck with the album, and give my best to the band.
Absolutely, my friend. You have a good day.
You too, Tom. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.